All right, hello. Welcome to Otis Frampton Live. Today I'm going to be doing something a little different than the usual making comics episode. I'm going to be making comics, but it's going to be very specific focus on one thing. And I will monitor the chat and try to respond if I have questions, but otherwise I'm going to kind of be moving ahead on this just to get things going. Just get my chat set up. All right. So earlier today on X, I saw a post about comic book lettering that kind of frustrated me because it kind of implied that lettering is the last thing to be done, and it's bad if changes are made to the script if it's being lettered by someone as part of a team. Anyway, my philosophy on comic book lettering has always been it's part of the comic book page. It's part of the storytelling. It's part of the visual landscape of the page. Comics is a visual storytelling medium, and so it shouldn't be an afterthought. That said, I'm going to show you the way that I letter a page. And that includes laying out a page. And it's going to be a page from my upcoming comic series, the Patchwork Girl Lives, which comes out next week? Next week, right? Next Wednesday, January 22nd. Issue 1 hit stands next week. Wow, boy. The clock is running, right? Yikes. All right, so I'm going to show you really from start to finish how I lay out a page, and a lot of that has to do with the lettering. The lettering can influence how I compose pages, panels, etc. Let me just turn this back on. Turn my panel borders back on. Okay, so to go back even a little bit further, so it sounds something to look at while I do this. Sorry. When I'm adapting, my process for adapting this comic in terms of adapting the text to a comic book script is a little different than what I usually do for comics. When I started working in comics and doing my own comics, I wrote full scripts and worked from that. And as I got more experience as a comic creator, I stopped doing that because it tends to make you think in terms of, this is the script, this page needs to be this page, and this page. Comics is a lot more messier of a process creation-wise, in my opinion. And because of that, I no longer script my comics. When I'm writing a new chapter of Oddly Normal, I will brainstorm, take notes, write stuff, but it won't be a full script. It'll be a collection of description and dialogue that's not really in any kind of format. And then I'll tackle the pages on their own and lay out the pages based on what I think is best for the story. Not everybody can do this. I don't recommend it for everybody, but it's how I work. And the process for adapting Patchwork Girl from the original Bomb novel to comic pages is a little bit the same, but also different. What I've done is I've taken sections of the book, and it usually results in about 2 chapters worth of material. I see you, Kate. 2 chapters worth of material, and I will take that text, and then I'll start breaking it down into what I could think of as page-size bites, and break up that text in a text formatting program, and then I'll start from there. So I have the whole issue, 20 to 24 pages, laid out with chunks of text that I think will work well on a page. Now, that doesn't mean that it'll always work out that way. In fact, most of the time it doesn't. You got to move things around and adjust, but it usually serves as a really good guide. So here's the chunk of text from the book. I think I might have cut some stuff out, some sort of narrative text that Baum uses, and broken it down into the basics of dialogue and description. But here it is. It's a exchange between the glass cat and the patchwork girl. I'll just read it real quick. I'm glad to find that you have decent brains. Mine are exceptionally good. You can see them work. They're pink. That's the glass cat talking. Scraps, repeated the girl. Did you call me Scraps? Is that my name? Glass. I believe my poor wife had intended you to name you Angeline, said the magician. It was another character in the scene. But I like Scrap best, she replied with a laugh. It fits me better, for my patchwork is all scraps and nothing else. Thank you for naming me Miss Cat. Have you any name of your own? I have a foolish name that Margaret once gave me, but which is quite undignified from one of my importance, answered the cat. She called me Bungle. All right, so that's an exchange of dialogue between three characters. In the scene, I've actually moved them from one location to another because there was too much of one location going on, and I needed a little bit of variety. But also, it served the purposes of the scene in question, where the magician is looking for information. So I moved it to the guy's library. But there's no description in the text at all. So that means I got to break it down. And I've decided to based on how I see this playing out, to use sort of a standard 6-panel grid. Here I already have it set up. And let's see, what should I do? I have panel and border templates set up in Procreate here that I use. So let's just get these, put that there, duplicate it, rotate it, move that up, duplicate that, move it down. And there we have our 6-panel grid. I don't often use formal grids like this, but this exchange, the way I pictured it in my mind, kind of played out like I'm heavily influenced by Jeff Smith and his in the series Bone. And this is sort of like a classic, just basic dialogue exchange ending on an image, a specific image that sort of punctuates the whole thing. So let's get the script. All right, so I've got the script here. Whoops. And it's in the font and the size of the dialogue that I already have set up as a template here. I have what I call my oddly text, but it's set up that way, so I can actually just use the script to break it down. Actually, let me just check something real quick. I'm gonna see something. Yeah, okay. I had to check the previous page to make sure I wasn't duplicating something. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, let's delete that, is start breaking down the script into its own little parts. So we've got the first sentence here. There we go. We'll put that there in the first panel. And we'll go back to our script. We'll duplicate it. Move it up here. Actually, let's delete that. I'll show you how we really do this. I'm glad to find blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I do need that. Sorry. Guide to find using brains. We'll delete that. Scraps. Did you call me Scraps? Is that my name? That'll be the dialogue for this panel. Now I'll go to the script again. I'm going to delete what I've already put in there. Hold on. And then do that. duplicate that. Oops, come on, be nice to me. There we go. I believe my poor wife had a name Angeline. So the magician. Okay. That will be sort of that's going to be a medium shot of the magician. He's previously been looking for a book in his library. I'm going to have him sort of setting it out on a pedestal here. And that advances the sort of story of what he was doing. So I get that information down. Okay, grab the script again. We will delete what he just said, duplicate it. Oops, nope. Why did it do that? That's weird. Get rid of that. Sorry. Layer management, that's fun. Okay. Okay, turn off. Go back to this one. Come on, man. Okay, delete what was just said. But I think scrap's best. Is it better? I think renaming this cat. Maybe name it your own. I think that's all going to be one panel, but maybe not. Let me check. Yes. Okay. So yeah, and then the cat replies, "I have a foolish name." We will delete that. We'll have that be its own panel, except we will delete this last part where it says, "Answer the cat. She called me Bungle." Whoops, we gotta come on. There we go. Sorry. Go back to this. Delete that. And now the last one is going to be the cat saying, "She called me Bungle." Now, I have already sort of visualized the scene playing out in my mind, so I know the beats. And when I broke down the script into that little component for this page, I already had an idea of what this was going to be. But I didn't really figure it all out until I realized that I was going to switch the locations in the story to the library, and then something came into my mind, and I figured out how to do this page. And here's why here's how I'm breaking it down. Let me just say, unfortunately, I have to rename the layers for the text here, sort of to give me an idea of where things are, because Procreate doesn't do that. But all right, let's just get down to breaking this thing down. And it's not always this sort of clean in terms of layout. A lot of times I move things around and switch things up. But for purposes of showing this, I chose a page that was pretty simple in terms of the layout. So in the previous page, Patchwork Girl was up on a ladder, and so I'm going to have her lay out the ladder here. I'm going to have her stepping down from the ladder. The cat's over here, and the bookshelf is sort of like this. I know this is really rough, but this is how I do layouts to start with. Now I'm gonna. Oh, and there's going to be a box in the foreground here with like some scrolls and maps and stuff sticking out. I'll have it kind of be an ornate box, but sticking out. This setup's sort of the layout, or the blocking of the scene. Now, this panel, I'm going to have Patchwork Girl sort of in a medium shot. She's gone. Well, she's going to be like looking down and picking up the scrolls out of the box. Now we cut to, let's see, the magician, and I'm going to move the dialogue eventually. But here's the magician. He's setting up the book on the table. Gonna have Ojo sort of behind him watching what's going on. He's just waiting to get to the information in the book. Now, for this one, I like scraps best. We're gonna cut to sort of a. We're gonna pull back and see Scraps. She's looking at one of the maps or scrolls or whatever. The box is here. Oh, actually, let's have her. Let's move her around. Hold on a second. I'm gonna have the cat actually at the box here, maybe kind of perched up on it. We'll put the Patchwork Girl. Come on, work for me. Patchwork Girl here. Then for this last one, we will have shown. We'll cut to a close-up of the cat up on the box. She's tossing, pulling out the scrolls and maps and tossing them aside. And in the final panel here, sort of the conclusion of a not a joke, but a visual sort of moment, we're going to have the cat sitting in the box. The empty box now, the scrolls are piled up around it, because cats sit in boxes. I got this idea yesterday, actually, when I opened the box from Amazon, threw the box on the floor, because we have two cats, and one of the cats got in it right away. And I'm like, there's a cat moment that I can add to this scene that doesn't already have business, as it's called in theater and film, things that the characters can be doing. All right, so here's the basic layout. It's really ugly. There's nothing interesting about it yet, but it's the rough, especially the rough draft of the storytelling down on the page. Next thing I'll do is go back up to my script or my dialogue. Now, let's rename this to just "I'm glad," the first couple of words, so I know which one it is. And we'll go in. "I'm glad to find you have decent brains." So there are there's 4 beats in this dialogue. I tend not to put more than one sentence in a dialogue balloon. It's very rare that I do that. And here's the reason. Dialogue in a comic page, it's not just text on the page. It's not just meant to be written. It's meant to be performed in the reader's mind. I think of the characters I'm drawing as actors, and this is their dialogue, and this is part of their performance. If I put all this in one, the reader's going to read it as, "I'm glad to find you have decent brains. Mine are exceptionally good." You can see them. You can see them work. They're pink. All in one. It reads as kind of flat. But if I start to break them up into multiple. So I'm glad to see you have decent brains. Let's get that. I'll put that right there. Take the second one here. Mine are exceptionally good. Put that there. I don't like blocking artwork. We may have to move the artwork around a little bit as we do this. So go back down to my layout. Move that. We don't need to see all of the box, I guess, for this to make it work, because I've already established in the previous page that it's sitting there, and I haven't really moved. I haven't really crossed the line that's the filmmaking term, the 180-degree line. I haven't crossed a line. I don't do that often. I treat comics almost like storyboards for film. So basically, this panel is a push-in from the previous page. So we're pushing in, and we can see it in the corner here. It gives more room for the dialogue. Mine are exceptionally good. And here's the next beat. Now, you could see him work their pink as one. I could put a comma. I could replace the semicolon here with a comma. But I'm going to replace it with a dash. Let's copy. Copy their pink. Delete that. So, in my mind, this character, this cat, she's vain. And she loves her attributes, her physical attributes. So, what I'm going to do here is break these up. You can see them work. They're pink. And I'm going to actually make the first two sort of connected. Now, here's where I start putting in rough dialogue balloons, just sort of like this. I'm going to have to move these a little bit apart, and I'll show you real quick how I do that. Like this. And once again, we've created dead space here, room for the dialogue, and then compose the panel sort of around that idea. But we're doing it together, and that's one of the points I'm trying to make here, is that the lettering should be part of the storytelling process, and the layouts are in some ways one of the most important parts of the layout process. Not just your draftsmanship, but your ability to compose panels that tell a story and allow room for dialogue, and allow room for the dialogue to actually play out in a way that feels like it's spoken. This. So, why did I do it this way? Why didn't I just put it all in one dialogue balloon or two? Because it'll read like this now. I'm glad to find you have decent brains. Mine are exceptionally good. Pause. Slight pause in the reader's mind as they work their way from this single dialogue balloon combination to this one. You can see them work. Another slight pause. They're pink. It creates a performance in the mind. It's a subtle thing, but it works, and it really happens. In my mind, as a storyteller, the further you put a dialogue balloon away from the previous one, if they're in any way connected, that creates like a really long pause. Even if it's a brief pause in the reader's mind, they'll read it that way. It's the visual representation of dialogue that is laid out in a way to create those performances in the reader's mind. It's a really important aspect of comic book storytelling. So that's pretty much how I'm going to lay out that panel. It might change as I start drawing things, but for now, that's what it is. Let me just rename this one to their pink, so I know where that ended. Okay. Here we go again. Scraps, repeated the girl. Did you call me Scraps? Is that a name? So that's going to ultimately end up being 3 balloons. Rename it Scraps. Come on, work with me here. There we go. So the first one, Scraps. Scraps. Copy that. quotes because I'm going to italicize that. We need the quotes here. And again, I'm going to be doing pretty much the same thing as I did before. Is that my name is going to be sort of the important one. And we're gonna there we go. And okay. Scraps, did you call me Scraps? That'll be one section. And then the last one, is that my name? Move that up. Go down to our balloon ruff. Like this. Brief pause. Is that my name? Sorry, I got lost. There we go. Scraps. Is that my name? There we go. Excellent. Now, rename this. Go to this guy's dialogue. Mom has written, I believe my poor wife. So he's even like indicating a bit of a performance there as well. So we'll make this its own. I believe my poor wife. He says poor wife because his wife's been turned to marble. So, Baum told us what the performance was here in the text. I believe my poor wife. So, let's create that pause here visually. And I'll give him sort of a, like this kind of look, like I believe, that kind of thing. But it's reduced down to just this. I believe. So, there we go. Now, for this balloon ruff here, actually, I'll put it right here. We'll move that. I believe, there we go. Now let's edit the rough layout. We'll move it. Oops. Let's move that down. We're going to resize it a little bit. Again, this is still just a guide, but I'm giving space for the dialogue. I'm not letting the dialogue cover things up that shouldn't be covered up. It's not an afterthought. It's part of the process. It should be part of the layout of the panels of the page. And also, this gives me room to do this. I pause. There we go. I might even have the magician have put the book down already, and it's like stroking his chin beard a little bit to emphasize that. Just give a little bit of performance. All right. Let's get back to what we're doing. Rename this, I believe. Now, we're here. We're probably going to have to make this smaller. There's a lot of dialogue to put in here, so we'll just go to the layout right away and kind of do that. I'm not sure how it's going to work out, but we'll see. Okay. Duplicate this. But I like Scraps best. That would be the first one. I'm going to rename these right away so I don't get lost. But I like. Next. She would probably laugh. It fits me better. Duplicate that right away. It fits me better for my Patrick is all scraps and nothing else. Now here's an example of where the dialogue can actually help direct the reader's eye. Thank you for naming me, Scraps. Do you have a name of your own? I'm actually going to leave this as one balloon. The two sentences are connected and should be read as sort of like almost without a breath. There should be no pause there at all. So I really want it to be read that way. Where is it? Hold on. Thank you. Now, I want to see if I can get this balloon a little bit. Trying to get a little smaller on the side there. There we go. That's closer. Can I do it? Yep, I can do it even more. Get it a little thinner. There we go. Put it right there. Now, down to my balloon ruff. These two will be connected. And this one will be its own because I want a bit of a natural pause there. So I'll have this and then that. And again, so going back to what I was saying about directing the reader's eye. She's talking, and then she addresses the cat directly. So I'll have her looking down at the cat, but also the words are leading you to the cat to see what the cat is doing. This is how you can basically command the reader's eye. It's similar to like prose writing, where if you're having a dialogue scene, you don't want a lot of description in there slowing the reader down, unless that's your intention. So you see dialogue pages have a lot of white space on them, and that keeps the movement in the scene moving. But it also directs the reader's eye, and this is an example of that. I'm using composition of both the image and the dialogue to direct the reader's eye this way, and also it directs the reader's eye this way, because they go from here to here, then down to here. I don't think this is thought of enough in comic book storytelling, the way that you should try to move the reader's eye through the page, but I won't get into that today. All right, so give your name. There's two left. Okay. I think I'm gonna have to go on already and reduce the size. I tend to draw pretty much full panel when I'm doing my initial layouts, and then I'll alter it as I get into the editing stage of adding in the dialogue or text boxes. So I have a foolish name. Let's get rid of this. Let me zoom in here. So here's an example of where I'm going to actually make a change to the text. I have a foolish name that Margaret once gave me, comma, but which is quite undignified for one of my importance. But which is, it doesn't flow for me. So I've been making slight alterations to some of the dialogue to make it a little less formal while keeping the spirit of it. This is an example that I have a foolish name that Margaret once gave me. I'm going to cut out here, but which is quite undignified for one of my importance. I'm going to cut that, add a period. Let's move these. There we go. And I want there to be a slight pause between what is now two sentences. But actually, it's going to be one sentence, because I'm going to go back here, edit this one, make this a dash. Something that I do every once in a while, just another trick to control what the reader is, how the reader is experiencing it. So I'm just going to cut out the word but. And move it down just a little bit from that. Oh, actually, maybe not. I'll have them connected, but slightly down to make it feel like two panels. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So I have a foolish name that Margaret once gave me. There we go. Now we can see where the art needs to be. And it can actually be right there. That gives us a way of seeing even more of the maps and scrolls. Then go back up to our balloon roof. I'm actually going to have the balloon here. There we go. And then last but not least, she called me Bungle. Oops. Okay. Whoop. This all italicized, B-U-G-L-E. I'm going to move this all the way over here, actually, because I'm going to want, and here's why. There's a reason for it. I could have it here, but that would mean that the reader would read that immediately instead of seeing the image, however briefly, in their mind. So I'm going to move it all the way over here. I'm going to alter this a little bit. Where is, oh, there we go. Going to move that a little bit that way. Maybe a little bit more. Balloon rough. In the end, there'll be more taken up here because of the shape of the cat's head. But the main point is, this is the the period on the end of the sentence of this page, which starts with showing the cat, Petrol Girl, the box, Petrol Girl looking at the box. The doctor replying, Petrol Girl again, cat kind of getting into the box or getting involved with the box by starting to pull things out, still pulling things out, and then the final period at the end of the sentence visually, in terms of storytelling, is the cat's sitting in the box. She called me Bungle. The visual almost helps enhance the dialogue, and I just realized that it creates a nice moment. And that's something that I'm always looking for in storytelling is moments. Go for moments. If you can find moments, it'll add a ton of charm, meaning, resonance, emotion, excitement, and realization from the reader or audience of the hand sort of directing things. It's a good thing to work towards. And this page, it's a simple layout. It's a 6-panel grid. It's it's Kirby-esque in that terms, but it tells a little story without, or I should say, it tells a story while also having the dialogue tell a story. That's another reason why moving this scene to a different location in the story, in my adaptation, was important. It gave the characters some new business to do in terms of the visuals. Because one thing you don't want to do, at least in modern comics, Stan Lee did it a ton in the early Marvel comics, but he showed and told. The whole show don't tell thing. Excuse me. In comics, as in any other visual storytelling medium, you should be showing and telling, but not doing the same thing twice. So here, I've got them discussing one thing, or Baum does, I should say, discussing one thing, but what the reader is seeing them do is untethered to that. It's different. It's giving more storytelling information per panel. I could have had them just, talking back and forth in the old location, and it would have been fine. But this gives me something interesting to draw. It gives the reader something to look at as well as read on the comic page. And by look at, I mean another form of reading. Because when the reader is reading a comic, the visuals are part of the reading process. So this is best of both worlds. This is probably one of the best examples of pages that I could have used for this kind of demo, because it shows that. It shows the show don't tell sort of semi-rule in visual storytelling. And it shows how I laid things out. So now, as I move forward with this page, what I'll start doing now is, now that the dialogue is sort of in place, I'll keep it there while I'm doing, I sort of lay things out in an iterative process. So now I'll reduce the opacity on these, go to a new layer, and I'll start actually, laying out the characters' shapes. Honestly, now I think about this. Oh yeah, actually that does make sense. I was gonna say I don't have to have Patrick Girl getting down, but it keeps her connected to the cat. So, like in terms of the storytelling, and also gives the cat motivation for starting to remove the maps and scrolls from the box, because she sees Patchwork Girl start doing that, and it gives her the idea. So it gives a nice sort of motivation for the movement and activity. There. Now I'm not going to do too much more of this, but I want you to see the process that I'm using. Just to get things down. And then here, oftentimes it's a good idea to draw in your sort of your background elements first, and then work on the characters so that you can work around it. Other times it's better to draw the characters first and then work in the background. That way you know how much you can cheat, if that makes sense. Now I said I wanted to have him sort of his hand on his chin, so he'd have his right hand here. We'll have him with his left hand. He's standing here. He's way too small in the frame, but I gotta fix that. Yeah, that's about right. But now the entire panel needs to be resized. There we go. You don't need to see the entire Capstone book. It's implied the rest is there. So I have him on one hand on the book placing it, and another hand on his chin. And then of course there's Ojo, he with the rectangular head behind him. So that's how I do it. And you know, adjustments might need to be made because this guy's hair is big, and maybe I'll draw the whole scene bigger. I might have to make this balloon connector a little smaller. But otherwise, this is my process for laying out a comic page. The dialogue and text boxes, the balloons, they're absolutely part of the process of layout for me. In some ways, it's the first step. I mean, as you saw the way I did it, I broke down the dialogue before I even started drawing anything, even though I had sort of an idea of how it would work out, and it did work out the way I wanted it to. It's still the first part of the process for me before any drawing, because I've already visualized it a little bit, and I'm basically making sure that the dialogue placement is there, it's working, and it does its job of keeping things flowing, not covering up the artwork, and telling the story the best way. I don't know if any of this made sense. I know this is really rough and ugly, but I'm basically halfway done with this page now in terms of the pencils. There's only a little bit more to do with layout, and then I can finish it up with the digital pencils, and I'll have one process knocked off my list of things to do for the comic. Yeah, so I guess that's it for the live demo here. It actually worked out much better than I thought it was going to. All right, so if anybody has any questions, I guess I'll leave it open for questions. Oh, good timing too. A little under an hour here. If anybody on Instagram, Rumble, or YouTube has any questions about this, I will take them now. I'll watch this while I say a couple more things. Obviously, the answer to the question of do you do your lettering right in Procreate? The answer is yes, that's what I do. Before this, I did it in Photoshop. I've never done lettering for comics separate from the artwork. If anybody tells you that it has to be done that way, or you have to use a vector program, you just say, no, it doesn't. It doesn't have to be done that way, and I'm not going to do it that way if you don't want to do it that way, because you don't. I've done every published comic I have out there has been lettered in a Photoshop style program. Photoshop, or now Procreate. Once Procreate added the text function, I was just in heaven, because I'm like, now I don't have to go over to a Photoshop after I'm done drawing it, because I've been using Procreate to actually do the drawing and coloring for my comics for a while. This is great. I can do it all in one. And you might ask, and this actually, I do have something else to show you. You might ask, okay, so once the artwork is done. Oh, did I draw on the roof? Yeah. Sorry, I gotta separate this out real quick. Once you're done with that, how do you actually do the real lettering? Well, I'll show you real quick. So this is the rough lettering. 1 second. Where's that down? Turn these off. Okay. So say everything worked out the way I have it planned here, and this is how the lettering is going to be placed finally. So at this point, go up to my lettering. Got the rough here. Don't need that. Don't need that. There's no special effects. All right. So I'm gonna do. I have a layer here called the scrim. It's sort of white. It's just. I use it sometimes instead of lowering the opacity. It depends on the situation, but all right. One second. Sorry about that. Okay. So the next step of the process is to I have the same process for lettering as I do for the artwork. I do roughs, then I do pencils, and then I do the final inking of the dialogue balloon. So the next step would be the pencils, and I'll stick with blue here. And I have a brush that I've created that helps me create the penciling for the balloons. You'll see it here on how I do this. And one at a time, I go in here and I kind of use freeform to scale it up. Then I'll use liquify to manipulate it a little more so it's not just a perfect oval, because that's boring. There we go, one down. Create a new layer, create a new balloon, do the same thing. We're going to move this, give it some space. There we go. Go in and liquefy. We want them ovalish, but not too oval. Give it a nice look there. Let's erase it. Well, we should merge down first. We'll merge that down. Now I'll obviously just repeat the process and get things moving here. I'm just gonna do rough ones here real quick so you can see the whole process play out. This is a little too close, so I'm gonna move that just to adjust. You don't want them too close or touching, because that's a bad tangent, boys and girls. All right. There's a balloon pencils. We'll do a cleaner version of the connectors and the tails. And there we have the dialogue balloon pencils. Turn that off. Now, for the process of the actual line work, this is where you're going to be. This is where a lot of people are probably going to say, "Well, you know what? I don't want it to be that handcrafted. I want some automation." There are brushes that you can get for Procreate. There's a pack I know exists on Gumroad where you can buy pre-made dialogue balloons, brushes. I mean, and they scale, like the line weight will scale as you scale the brush, which is great, but that means you're always going to have the exact same line weight for the outlines of the dialogue. I don't do that because I want my dialogue balloons, and I have a saved size. I want my dialogue balloons to have a little bit of a handmade look, if you just go for like a pre-scaled way of doing things, you're not going to get that. I'm going to cite Jeff Smith and his work on his Bone series as sort of inspiration for this. You know, it's old school lettering techniques. You're actually doing it yourself, so they're not so vanilla, they're not so perfect. This one's going to need to be changed a little bit, I think. scaling on it. I won't finish that. And then, you know, this is, you just draw it in. So all my lettering is done by hand, just like this. And I mean, let's see if you can see this. Well, I'll show that. Let me just go back to a page that already has lettering on it. Go to a page from issue 1. This is what it looks like eventually. Some people might be able to look at that and say, well, that's, you know, that doesn't look perfect, but that's the point. So that's how my lettering looks on the final page. Zoom in really far. If you zoom in far enough, you can see little, you know, areas where it's not perfect, but I don't really care about that. So there it is. And this was, I mean, I did this the same way. You can see how I composed this panel just to make this exchange of dialogue, which is sort of has a staccato feel to it. I wanted it all sort of in one little bunch here. But composed it so you see the characters in this sort of relationship and what's going on. And it works out really well for me. Let me check and see if there's any questions. All right. Well, you know, that said, works well for me. Let me just restate. When I give advice about this kind of thing, it's not 100% for everybody. I'm not trying to say this is how you should do it. I'm not trying to say this is the only way to do it. I'm trying to say this is how I do it. And it might be a way that you haven't thought of doing it that might work for you if you try it. What I will say is I think that lettering should be thought of as part of the page, ultimately. That's my main point here. Don't let it be an afterthought, or you'll end up covering up artwork that you didn't want to cover up. You'll end up creating, you'll end up turning what might have been a well-composed panel originally into a poorly composed panel because the lettering is being forced into certain areas. If you think of it all as one thing, you'll never have that problem, and you'll look better as a visual storyteller if you take that stuff into consideration. All right, I guess that's all for today. That was a fun one, and I got some work done on an actual page, which should be the point. Tomorrow, let me just get out here and go. Tomorrow, oh wait, I gotta create another. Sorry, I'm doing this in real time. This is what we've got done on the Procreate Dreams demo that I've been doing. Finished the background animation, character animation, weather animation, and lighting visual effects. Tomorrow, Wednesday the 15th, 2 p.m. Central, I will be working on camera effects, which is basically teaching you how I create the look of a handheld camera in Procreate Dreams, which doesn't have cameras, but we'll make it work. All right. Thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and all that stuff on X, Instagram, Rumble, YouTube, and Facebook, the 5 places I stream to. And I will see you tomorrow. Take care.